So what does Kevin Lee do next? Obviously now he's in a completely different situation than he was in last week, because he's now coming off a loss to Charles Oliveira that's going to somewhat halt his progression towards the world title at lightweight. His path is going to have to change directions a little bit. The train is off the tracks, but it's just taking a pit stop for now. I've heard Kevin Lee make a statement after his loss to Charles Oliveira that no one's going to see him for a couple of years. I will, however, remind you of the time that we saw Kevin Lee in exactly the same situation after his loss to Rafael dos Anjos, where he was saying that you might never see me again. Kevin Lee seems to make emotional comments, much like Rory McDonald, after their fights, and Kevin Lee is a very emotional guy after a loss. He had his entire career set out for him, which in retrospect, maybe was a little bit far-fetched. He was saying he was going to beat Charles Oliveira. Then he was going to beat Islam Makhachev in Russia after he beats Oliveira in Brazil. And it was kind of like, now looking back at it, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, slow down, Kevin Lee. He had his fucking life planned out 5 years ahead. And it just changed. So he's going to have to change directions and change pathways. I believe that Kevin Lee is going to be back very soon. I don't believe he's going to take these years off that he says. That was a very emotional response just after the fight. And I feel like right now, Kevin Lee is watching back the fight and thinking, hang on a second, I was doing pretty fucking good. I was avoiding submissions. If I make a few changes here and there, he's going to start analysing his performance a little bit and start thinking to himself, you know what? I'm looking at the rankings. There's some good fights out there. One win, and all of a sudden, I'm back in the mix. We saw it happen when he fought Gregor Gillespie. He was coming off some losses. Everyone thought Kevin Lee was down and out. He beats Gregor Gillespie. All of a sudden, Kevin Lee's the next truth of the fucking lightweight division. He's going to be champion again. The entire mood changed after a win, and that's what happens in the MMA world. He lost to Charles Oliveira. Is it a bad loss? Yes, because Charles Oliveira is ranked below him. That doesn't look too good if you're a guy who's offering up the position to a more lower ranked fighter. The guys up above don't want to be losing to guys that they should be beating completely in the rankings. Rankings should dictate who win fights, and if that doesn't happen and the underdog wins, which Charles Oliveira did, it's going to fuck with you a little bit, you know? It's going to maybe change the impression that a lot of people have. And then the next time that you take on a guy that's ranked quite far below you, maybe people are going to have the same idea that that guy's going to beat you as well. It changes the whole dynamic of Kevin Lee. But if I was Kevin Lee, here's what I would do. Get back in there, man. You're 27 years of age. You're going to be 28 in September, I believe. I think his birthday's in September. He has got a long fucking time of being 27 years of age. You just got to TriStar. You lost to Charles Oliveira. You missed fucking 19 out of 20 submissions and the 20th one got you. Unlucky, dude. It happens. I think Kevin Lee should get straight back in there. I don't understand why he's all hard done by about his performance. I do understand. Listen, he was expecting himself to go out there and destroy Charles Oliveira, and I'm sure now that he's thinking to himself, fuck, if Charles Oliveira beat me, then what's going to happen at the top of the level? But Jesus Christ. Charles Oliveira might be the next champion. You never know these things. You know, Gregor Gillespie could have been the next champion. People are saying that Gregor Gillespie was the guy to beat Khabib. Now, people are also saying that Johnny Walker's the guy to beat John Jones, which is a tricky situation also. But either way, get back in there, Kevin Lee. You never know who Charles Oliveira... Maybe you'll fight Charles Oliveira again in 3 years for the title shot. You never know what's going to happen in MMA. Don't be so hard on yourself, Kevin Lee. Get back in there. Get back to TriStar. You didn't take a lot of damage in the fight versus Charles Oliveira. Let's be real. It could have been way worse. You could have got KO'd. You could have got beaten around the octagon. You took a big shot now and again in the second round. There was a moment where Charles Oliveira was landing some big shots, but Kevin Lee was never out of it. He was always there, switched on, trying to look for a way out, trying to look for a way to throw back. He was never like wobbly chicken-legged like he was against Edson Barboza, you know what I'm saying? High hopes, Kevin Lee. You didn't take any damage. You took a loss. You got your show money. Get back in the gym. I don't want all this fucking, I'm down on myself, you won't see me for a few years. We're going to see you in like 5 months. I know we're going to see you in like 5 months. This is a Kevin Lee situation all over again. He does act out of emotion after a loss, which a lot of fighters would do, which is why I think, why would you interview them after a loss? They shouldn't even have to do interviews, but I guess it's a cool thing to hear their side of the story as the loser after a fight. But either way, I mean, if you ask a guy just after he got his dreams crushed on a stage in front of millions of people, online in this case because there was no one in the arena, but in often cases the arena as well is watching, obviously he's going to say, don't feel like doing it at the moment, to be honest with you. I think Kevin Lee's going to wake up this morning or yesterday morning and think to himself, you know what? Fuck it, I'm getting back in there and I'm going to take on a top contender. I'm 27 years of age. Oliveira is still young in his career and he's 30 something. I think he's 30 on the dot right now. Kevin Lee has got a long way to go before he reaches his prime, and he didn't take a lot of damage against Charles Oliveira. That is a free lesson, okay? Usually guys have to learn their lessons in the octagon by getting KO'd. You see it time and time again. Darren Till. Kevin Lee did not have to take that KO lesson. Okay, he got a free little lesson. Here's a guillotine. Watch out for them ones in the future. Also, maybe don't call me out again because I'm Charles Oliveira and it turns out I'm pretty good. I don't just crush cans. I can also step up the level now as well. Kevin Lee needs to get back in there, and I'm listing some opponents that he could do it against. Obviously, there's potential fights with the loser now of Makhachev versus Hernandez. If Kevin Lee is dumb enough to take on the winner, I feel like that's going to be a really dumb idea, to be honest with you, and I don't like that sound of that whatsoever. But either way, the loser of Makhachev Hernandez is a good option. But if Kevin Lee wants to be Kevin Lee, and he doesn't want to wait around for the loser of Makhachev Hernandez, you took no damage. Get back in there against a guy lower ranked than you, maybe further down the rankings, maybe Anthony Pettis. Both of you coming off losses. Anthony Pettis is number 16, one position outside the rankings right now. You versus Anthony Pettis, that's an amazing fight. Anthony Pettis would take it because it would mean that he would then be back in the mix if the Dan Hardy fight with Anthony Pettis doesn't work out, because Dan Hardy's been saying he's going to come back into the octagon for about 5 fucking years. Hasn't done it, and I don't think he's ever going to fucking do it, so I don't know what's going on there. But either way, if that fight between Pettis and Hardy doesn't happen, I am absolutely okay with Kevin Lee versus Anthony Pettis on the main card of a pay-per-view. I am 100% okay with Anthony Pettis versus Kevin Lee on the main card of the McGregor versus Gaethje card. Just do it, Kevin Lee. Get back in there. Hey, Anthony Pettis, want to earn a shot up the rankings? I'm number 11. I'm coming off a loss. Where is he in the rankings actually now? This website has him at number 11, which I could see being quite a realistic result. They haven't actually updated the rankings yet. That happens on Tuesdays. But I could see Kevin Lee maybe shifting to the 9 or 10 range. Now that Edson Barboza's leaving the division as well, that kind of helps him a little bit. Ally Quinter's probably going to retire soon. Donald Cerrone's going to retire soon. Listen, Kevin Lee, you beat Anthony Pettis all of a sudden. All of these guys shift out of the division and all of these older guys start to fall down the rankings naturally. You're number 8 again. You're right back where you started. There is a very lucky situation in the lightweight division right now because we're finally flushing out the old cunts. You know, Donald Cerrone, maybe on his way out. If he loses his next one, maybe even retirement. You never know. And then you've got guys like Ally Quinter. He's part-time, still kicking ass, but losing fights, you know. And if he loses one more, maybe he says, you know what? Fuck it, I'm not doing it anymore. And leaves. And all of a sudden, Kevin Lee is right back in the same ranking spot that he once was. I feel like Kevin Lee should get right back in there. Hello, Anthony Pettis. Let's fight each other on the McGregor main card. And everyone's going to tune in to watch it because that's an amazing fight. That is one option that Kevin Lee could go for. And I feel like it's a very winnable option as well. And a very good option because Anthony Pettis is a guy, listen, submission attacks from his back. Good striking. It's like a similar style matchup than Charles Oliveira. So maybe Kevin Lee could show that he's learned from the Charles Oliveira loss, and it's a good example of Anthony Pettis, and also a very winnable fight for Kevin Lee. I'm sure I would pick him against Anthony Pettis, especially seeing the situation that Anthony Pettis is in career-wise right now. So, if Makhachev loses to Hernandez, I would maybe like to see Kevin Lee versus Islam Makhachev, but if Kevin Lee doesn't want to wait around and says, I want to be back in there in June, I'm not waiting until the summer, I need to get my steam back, my momentum back, my hype back, I need to get this train back on the tracks and chewing quite slowly along, Kevin Lee versus Anthony Pettis is the fight to make. I think it's an amazing fight to make, and if they don't make that fight, and Anthony Pettis does want to crush the can of Dan Hardy, no offense Dan Hardy, but, you know, Can Hardy it might as well be called, because he's not been around for 10 years, you know, very good reason why Anthony Pettis wants that fight, and he sees it as a free paycheck, and the UFC knows that, so I feel like they almost might not give it to him. Kevin Lee versus Anthony Pettis is an amazing fight, but if they don't want to do that, listen, there are other guys coming off losses in the lightweight division that would be somewhat respectable fights to take. Listen, if I saw Kevin Lee versus Drakkar Klose at the UFC McGregor card, whatever number it's going to be, maybe 250, I don't know what number is it going to be? What number are we on now? 240. It's probably going to be like 240, 253 or something like that. McGregor versus Gaethje, Kevin Lee versus Drakkar Klose, Kevin Lee versus Anyone. Kevin Lee versus Nasrat Haqparast. Anyone makes sense for Kevin Lee. He is a big name. He doesn't need to fight top contenders. If he just wants to fight a little bit of a can and beat up on Nasrat Haqparast and submit him in the first round, go ahead and do that. If you want to do it to Jakar Close, go out there and submit him in the first round. Do what you want, Kevin Lee. Get back in there. Get a win. Fuck all this talk about you're not going to see me in a couple years. Just fucking get back in there, man. I'd say that's what he does. I know he's in a different situation right now, and I have no right to say what he should do next with his career, but you're telling me that Pettis fight is not amazing? That Pettis fight is a great fight. That's such a relevancy bout. Whoever loses is out of the mix. Whoever wins is back in the fucking mix. All steam, full steam ahead. The train's back on the tracks and we're choo-chooing along quite nicely. Kevin Lee versus Anthony Pettis, UFC 253. McGregor versus Gaethje, the main card, opener of the main card as well. Fuck it, why not? Let's do it. Get back in there, Kevin Lee. And for Oliveira, I don't know what he's going to do next. Probably take on the winner of Ferreira versus Dober. He wants Gaethje or McGregor. Listen, I'm sick of it. It's not going to happen. I like you, Oliveira. You got a good win. Very good job. You're not going to get McGregor. Why even waste the call out? Why waste the time calling him out? I don't understand. Either way, maybe it was a question that a reporter asked him that was quite leading towards McGregor. Who knows? I just see the fucking headlines and get clickbaited like the rest of us. Either way, Kevin Lee versus Anthony Pettis. Make it happen. I think it'd be an amazing fight, and I think that Anthony Pettis would welcome it as well. I don't want to even see Anthony Pettis versus Dan Hardy, because I know what the fight is. You know? Anthony Pettis versus Dan Hardy, it's not like, oh, this is crazy, who's going to win this one? It's just like Anthony Pettis wants a gimme fight against Dan Hardy, and Dan Hardy wants a big name, so that if he loses to them, it can be acceptable, and he can act like he still can hang in there with the big dogs, even though Anthony Pettis is on the slide right now. But I think, fuck Pettis versus Dan Hardy. I ain't ready to see that shit because fuck it. Dan Hardy, listen. I like Dan Hardy. He was only famous... I don't know. Dan Hardy's very good. And I don't want to shit on Dan Hardy, to be honest. I actually like Dan Hardy. But either way. Dan Hardy's got this attitude like he was a former fucking champion. I only want to come back to fights that interest me. I'm like, come on. Take on fucking Ronaldo, Dan Hardy. Like, who cares what Dan Hardy does? I don't want to see Hardy versus Pettis. I want to see Kevin Lee versus Pettis right away. And I want to see Kevin Lee get back in there before Charles Oliveira does and show us that he's still about this shit. Because if he beats Anthony Pettis, he's going to slide himself back up the rankings, right back to where he was. And who knows, maybe get the winner of Makhachev versus Hernandez. Depends how active he wants to be. If he wants to get back in there at June, late June, for the McGregor versus Gaethje card, fingers crossed. I hope it's McGregor versus Gaethje, but if it's not, Usman versus Masvidal maybe. We'll see what happens. Kevin Lee versus Anthony Pettis. And if he wins that one, turn around like you wanted to in the summer anyway, and face the winner of Makhachev versus Hernandez. And all of a sudden, you're right back on track. It only seems bad the day after the fight, Kevin Lee. Okay, and I'm talking to Kevin Lee here. I know he's upset with himself. I know he is. He's always like this after a loss. He gets into a bit of an emotional situation where he basically says he doesn't want to do it at all anymore. He's going to be back. We'll hear from him. He's back in training probably right now. It's Monday. Kevin Lee is in TriStar right now, hitting the pads, working up a sweat and thinking he can make a comeback for the title because he's still 27 years of age and he could still get to the title before he's even 28. He's got time left. Goodbye. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. I'll see you later.